Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Hu Yuhao had never expected the activity that Bei Bei was talking about to be a blind date, thus his heart unwittingly began to beat faster. Will that Wang Qiao be attending this blind date too? He was experienced in terms of battle, but he was like a blank piece of paper when it came to relationships. He actually became exactly what that Shu Sanxia had described earlier, as he descended into silence and began to blush. Shu Sanxia walked up next to Hu Yuhao and wrapped his arm around Hu Yuhao's shoulder. Don't worry, Yuhao, it's easy to get girls. I'll teach you 3 moves: be courageous, be meticulous, and be thick-skinned. We're all adults at this point, and the academy has given us permission. If you see someone that you like, just go ahead and chase her. Remember that we aren't inferior to anyone, and good luck. Yes, Hu Yuhao nodded, but the goddess of light's image echoed in his mind. The first person that popped into his mind when he thought about girls was the woman of his dreams, and occasionally the feeling of awe he'd felt when he saw Wang Qiao's elegance and gracefulness. When will Wang Dong be back, eldest senior brother? Hu Yuhao asked Bei Bei. It'd be nice if Wang Dong was around. Wang Qiao should be his twin sister, thus he should be able to give me some pointers. Bei Bei exchanged a look with Shu Sanxia and then said, he should be back in time to participate in the event, as it'll be hosted tomorrow night. Eldest senior sister and I will be hosting the hosts of the Sea God's Fate, thus we'll explain the rules to you tomorrow during the day. This event belongs to the inner courtyard students, and is a good chance for everyone to interact with one another. The teachers will make guest appearances and watch from the side, but they will not interfere. You don't have to worry, little junior brother, because we have prepared for bashful people like you and Kai too, and I guarantee that you will be eased into the event when the time comes. Furthermore, you have to remember that being together with the person you like isn't that easy, as there are far fewer girls in the inner courtyard than guys. There will be a contest of abilities when the time comes, so you have to be mentally prepared for that. We still have to fight during the blind date? Hu Yuhao exchanged a look with He Kai too. There was a tinge of eagerness in all his anxiety, but he also felt a little distressed and awkward. Eldest senior brother, can I choose not participate in this event? Hu Yuhao asked feebly. Bei Bei replied firmly, no way. You're part of the Sea God's Pavilion, and you're part of Shrek's 7 monsters. You will ruin our reputation if you don't participate. Furthermore, you won't have this fantastic opportunity whenever you want it. Even though it's hosted every year, if you don't make a move on the girl you like, then perhaps she'll become someone else's girl the following year. You can't let this opportunity go, as it may never come back to you. Hu Yuhao watched Bei Bei's sincere and honest expression, but Hu Yuhao felt as if there were butterflies in his stomach. He started to hope for Wang Dong's return in his mind again. Wang Dong was much more experienced than he was with things like this. They departed Shrek City, and it didn't take long before they returned to Shrek Academy. Sea God's Island hadn't changed much. Even before he stepped on the island, Hu Yuhao could feel that there were quite a few people in boats hustling about on the lake. Bei Bei told him that they were making preparations for tomorrow's Sea God's Fate. Let's grab a bite to eat. I'm famished. Shu Sanxia patted his stomach and strode towards the canteen the moment he stepped on the island. Hu Yuhao was astonished when they arrived at the canteen. The Sea God's Pavilion's canteen was bustling. He could see about 30 students eating when he surveyed the place, and the food seemed a lot more sumptuous than before. What made him even more surprised was that there were 2 barrels of red wine by the side, which students could drink if they wanted to. What's this, eldest senior brother? The academy allows alcohol now? Hu Yuhao asked in shock. Bei Bei answered, the Sea God's Fate will be hosted tomorrow, and tonight is called Singles Night. Have you realized that the people eating are all guys, and there isn't a single girl? Everybody has been frustrated and nervous during their day-to-day cultivation, and most of the students in the inner courtyard are already adults. Having a little wine is nothing, and this is expressly permitted by the academy so that everyone can relax a little. It isn't allowed on typical days. Come, let's have a drink. This was the first time Hu Yuhao had ever tasted wine. He savored the delicious food prepared by the Academy's top-tier chefs and sipped on dark red wine the color of a rose. He gazed into the night above the sea god's lake in the distance, and he suddenly felt a little surreal. The wine tasted a little sour when it entered his mouth, and it smelled like ripe apricots. He didn't feel much when he had the first mouthful, but the crisp fragrance of the wooden barrel and the wine's various aromas came back as an aftertaste, and Huiyuhao instantly felt his face starting to heat up. He had never been tipsy before in his entire life, and he felt as if his entire body had been submerged in the savory wine. Huiyuhao? A deep and slightly unfamiliar voice rang out from behind him. Huiyuhao turned around and stared at the person who had called out his name. His eyes were relaxed and a little dazed before this, but they instantly became as sharp as could be. This person was a tall young man, slightly taller than Huiyuhao, with broad shoulders and a wide back. His short golden hair was especially neat and clean, but his face seemed a little gloomy and overcast, and he was staring at Huiyuhao with cold eyes. He was also holding a cup of wine in his hand, and his pupils sparkled with a chilly light. Dai Huabin, Huiyuhao called out the other person's name calmly. They hadn't seen each other for more than 2 years, but the hatred in Huiyuhao's heart had never disappeared, not even for a single moment. He had gotten better at hiding this hatred at the bottom of his heart. At least, now wasn't the time to take his revenge. Dai Huabin walked up beside Huiyuhao and looked towards the vast mist-covered sea god's lake. He sipped his wine and his eyes narrowed as he asked, "When did you return?" Huiyuhao drank his wine in similar fashion and replied, "I came back a few days ago." Xu Sanxia said, "Your batch has many prodigies and talents, indeed. You, Wang Dong, and even Xiao Xiao have entered the inner courtyard, and several students jumped levels to enter the inner courtyard as well." "Several? Who else besides Dai Huabin?" Huiyuhao asked curiously. Xu Sanxia replied, "There are 3 others. The 7 treasures glazed pagoda's auxiliary-type soul master Ning Qian, the red dragon assault-type soul master Wu Feng, and the rubber-don defense-type soul master Xie Huanyue." "Yeah, isn't that him over there?" Huiyuhao followed Xu Sanxi's eyes, and saw Xie Huanyue. Xie Huanyue was much taller compared to a few years ago, but his body seemed to have grown even pudgier, while his looks were quite different as well. After all, everyone had gone through puberty. Dai Huabin walked up next to him and said something to him, and Xie Huanyue's eyes coincidentally turned towards Huiyuhao. Their eyes met, and Huiyuhao raised the wine glass in his hands as a gesture. He didn't have any vengeance or hatred with Xie Huanyue, after all. Xie Huanyue responded with a nod. Xu Sanxia said, "Did you expect the few of them to be able to join the inner courtyard?" Huiyuhao asked, "They must have broken through rank 50. Xu Sanxia nodded and replied, "They can be described as extraordinary prodigies even within Shrek Academy, just like you and Wang Dong. Even though they don't have twin martial souls, their martial souls are exceptionally powerful. This is especially so for Dai Huabin, and his performance in the past few years has been rather dazzling and stunning. His soul power should have exceeded rank 50 by now. You have to realize that he's been studying in the outer courtyard this whole time, and that he doesn't have the advantage of twin martial souls like Wang Dong does. At his current rate of progression, he'll definitely breach rank 60 within the next 2 years. Among Shrek's 7 monsters, even Nan Nan and Xiao Xiao might not be as fast as him." Huiyuhao smiled and said, "I'm slower too." Xu Sanxia quickly snapped back, "You're a freak, how could you be the same as the others? You shouldn't talk about yourself like that. Even though I don't think that Dai Huabin is stronger than you, his potential and talent are possibly superior to senior Dai Yuehang's. You should watch out in case he tries to stir up trouble with you tomorrow, as it's related to a major turning point in your life." Huiyuhao laughed and said, "Third senior brother, you sound like you're trying to say that I'll definitely find the person that I like tomorrow." Xu Sanxia laughed along with him and said, "You'll find her as long as you're not a stupid fool." Even though Huiyuhao was feeling a little distressed again, he could still clearly feel Xu Sanxi's concern. "Come, let's have a few more drinks. It's rare for the academy to give us wine, and pretty good wine at that. This brew is probably at least 10 years old, and has been oxidized beforehand. These 2 barrels are quite expensive. Look at Bei Bei, that useless fella." Bei Bei was currently chatting with Hikai Tu on the other side. They were both sitting right next to a barrel of wine as if they were guarding it, and Bei was downing wine very quickly. He'd finish his glass in 2 or 3 mouthfuls before refilling it and continuing. Hikaitu was quite large, but even he wasn't drinking as fast as Bei. Shu Sanchis frowned slightly and said, Bei has been quite depressed these past 2 years. Hui Yuhao nodded his head slightly. Of course he knew what Shu Sancha was trying to say. Shu Sancha had known Bei longer than everyone else present, thus he was undoubtedly the one that understood him best. Hui Yuhao turned back around. He truly didn't wish to see his eldest senior brother like this. As the circles around his eyes began to turn red, he thought, is this love? If the girl that I like were to suddenly leave my side one day, would I become like him? Bei's loneliness affected everyone's mood in the end, and the singles night ended like that. Hui Yuhao didn't stay with his senior brothers, as his dorm on Sea God's Island had been assigned to someone else. As such, he could only stay in the Sea God's Pavilion for now. He sauntered towards the Sea God's Pavilion. However, when he saw the towering golden tree, tears began to involuntarily trickle down his cheeks. He wasn't just feeling sad for Bei. Coming back here made him think about Elder Mu, who'd passed away. He knelt on the ground in the direction of the Sea God's Pavilion, and kowtowed towards the tall ancient tree 3 times in a row. I'm home, teacher. I miss you so much. Hui Yuhao didn't even manage to finish his sentence before beginning to sob uncontrollably. This place was his real home, only here could he feel completely relaxed. 2.5 years had gone by, and he'd finally been able to see the Sea God's Island once more. He was finally able to see the Sea God's Pavilion and Golden Tree again. Hui Yuhao cried for a good 15 minutes, as if he was releasing all the pent-up emotions that he'd accumulated over the past 2.5 years. Elder Mu was gone, Electrolux's divine sense had dissipated into nothingness, Teacher Xiao Wei was missing, and Ma Xiaodao had vanished. These were all people he was extremely close to. He had been extraordinarily tough on himself back in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. He'd rarely slept properly, most nights had been spent drawing blueprints or cultivating. More than 2 years had gone by since he left. Hui Yuhao had grown up, and was now much more mature. But no matter what, he was still only 17 years old. Most people at his age were still in their adolescence, and their mentalities were still immature such that they still had to rely on their parents. And yet, Hui Yuhao had been carrying so much more on his shoulders all by himself. Elder Xian quietly stood a ways away from Hui Yuhao, raising the wine bottle in his hands from time to time to take a sip. However, he didn't step forward to console Hui Yuhao, as an emotional catharsis such as this wasn't exactly a bad thing for him. Instead, this was a chance for Hui Yuhao to finally release his pent-up emotions. Elder Mu, you took in 2 exceptional disciples during your final years. Elder Xian's eyes were full of gratification. In the Sea God's Pavilion not far from him, a pair of clear yet icy blue eyes were staring at Hui Yuhao, who was still bawling on the ground. This person wanted to dash out and comfort Hui Yuhao, but the 2 people beside this person held them back. Do you want to waste all of your past efforts? Control yourself. Crying isn't a bad thing for him. Men shed tears too, but they don't come easily. I think that there's too much pressure on his shoulders, but he's in so much pain, and his cries are so sorrowful. Stop looking. Your tears are coming out too. Everything will be all right tomorrow. Look, Elder Xian is here. He'll be fine. He's a powerful Soul King after all. Will crying really do him any harm? The inner courtyard's living conditions were a lot better than the students in the outer courtyard. Several 2-story buildings had been erected unevenly on the Sea God's Island, each of which could host 2 students. Bei and Shu Sancha naturally took one of these buildings, while Hikaitu's situation was similar to Hui Yuhao's in that he had nowhere to go. However, he couldn't sleep in the Sea God's Pavilion, thus he decided to sleep at Bei and Shu Sanchi's place. The place was spacious anyway, housing an extra person wasn't a problem. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother. Hui Yuhao greeted his senior brothers respectively. You didn't just wake up, did you, little junior brother? Bei asked with a smile on his face. He seemed to have recovered from last night. The dejection and moodiness from the previous day was completely gone. Huayuhao was a little embarrassed as he replied, "Yeah, I just woke up. I haven't had such a comfortable sleep in a long time. Maybe it's because I'm home, but I felt much more relaxed in my sleep." Hikaitu nodded his head as if he related deeply to this comment and said, "I had that feeling as well. Last night's sleep was great. Sleeping is so much more comfortable than meditation." Shusancha rolled his eyes and said, "You had a great comfortable sleep, but the two of us sure suffered. Your snoring was so loud that we thought the ceiling was going to collapse." Bei heaved a faint sigh and said, "I have to thank Kaitu after all. At least I temporarily forgot about Xiao Wei amidst his thunderous snoring. You two even human? Was it that bad?" Hikaitu angrily exclaimed, "Yes." Bei and Shusancha nodded in unison. It was clear that the two of them had truly suffered a lot last night. Huayuhao tried to hold back his laughter from the side. The days he spent with his senior brothers were always greatly pleasing and gratifying. Shusancha said, "Kaitu, considering how loud you snore, should you pay the doctor a visit? Even if Xiao Xiao does walk away with you during the sea god's fate, you'll both have quite a hard time. Who in their right mind could stand having a sleepless night every day?" Hikaitu lowered his voice and said, "I can meditate, I won't snore if I don't sleep." "Are you telling me that you actually sleep every single night? That makes sense." They were soul masters, thus they didn't spend that many days sleeping. Generally, most of their nights were spent meditating. Huayuhao attempted to help his second senior brother and asked, "What are the rules for today's sea god's fate, eldest senior brother? How many people will be participating?" Bei answered, "You've asked the right person. Nobody but me and eldest senior sister know the exact number of participants tonight, not even the teachers are aware. We benefit from being the insiders. As such, I'll explain the key events to you guys in order to ensure that none of you run into any problems before the confessions." Shusancha, Hikaitu, and Huayuhao all began to listen intently to Bei's explanation. In the end, this event would be a major turning point in their lives. Shusancha and Hikaitu both had a target in mind, while Huayuhao seemed to desire the girl of his dreams. However, the three of them had something in common: they didn't have absolute confidence. There was no need to mention Shusancha and Jiang Nan, as they'd always been a resentful couple. Even though Jiang Nan showed some concern to Shusancha from time to time, she was generally cold towards him, while her speech was typically serious and direct. Hikaitu's relationship with Xiao Xiao was comparatively better, as they'd been relatively well acquainted since the beginning. However, Xiao Xiao had still been young back then. Hikaitu was exceptionally diffident about these things, thus he'd never proposed any sort of official relationship between them. Hikaitu and Huayuhao had then left the academy for 2 years, thus he was afraid that Xiao Xiao had forgotten all about him. How could he have even a thread of confidence? Bei continued, "The sea god's fate is one of the most important internal activities within Shrek Academy. Shrek Academy is known as the #1 academy in the continent, and we aren't called that for nothing. As I'm sure you're all aware, the inner courtyard's disciples are all extraordinarily elite soul masters. Their abilities are formidable, so it's natural that they have high relationship standards. As such, it isn't that easy for them to find a suitable partner in the outside world. This is the reason for the sea god's fated blind date. We're trying to give the inner courtyard's disciples, who typically devote their concentration and focus to cultivation, a chance to mingle with and get to know each other." "Get to the point," Shusancha said a little impatiently. Bei smiled and said, "Don't be impatient, you have to let me explain properly. Neither Hikaitu nor our little junior brother have participated in this event before. Even though this is a blind date, we are an academy after all, and the #1 academy on the continent at that. This even isn't as simple as a blind date. The sea god's fated blind date is also a platform to test the abilities of the inner courtyard's disciples. Obtaining approval from the girl of your dreams isn't that simple. Everyone will have to pass through multiple trials before they'll gain the chance to confess. If they can't even pass this hurdle, then they won't even get a chance to confess. Of course, luck is also involved. If you're lucky enough, you might be able to enter the final part. When both parties are happy with each other, then you might just be able to walk away with said girl of your dreams. Since it's still considered an assessment, that means that it goes both ways. The men and women will both be assessed. The only difference is that there have always been fewer girls who participate in the Sea God's fated blind date, thus the assessment will naturally be more difficult for the guys. The event is separated into 5 segments. There are a total of 56 single inner courtyard disciples participating in the event, including the 3 of you. That number also includes Dai Huabin, Xia Huanyue, Wu Feng, and Ning Qian, who entered the inner courtyard not too long ago. Eldest senior sister and I will be the hosts for this event. The first segment will be the entry phase. This event is known as the Sea God's Fate on the Sea God's Lake, which literally means that this event will be hosted atop the Sea God's Lake. The lake will be decorated with lights, but there won't be a stage or anything of the like. When the time comes, the only things that you guys will have to stand on will be water lilies. Water lilies. Hikaitu's face instantly darkened. Water lilies were aquatic plants, enormous leaves more than 1 meter in diameter. The leaves' edges then curved upwards, thus they could hold some weight on the water's surface. However, water lilies could only hold the weight of a 6 or 7-year-old kid without capsizing. Grown adults were a bit too dense and heavy for water lilies. Hikaitu's frame was at an extreme disadvantage under these circumstances and rules. He weighed more than 120 kilograms, and his muscles were compact and knotted together. As he was a food-type soul master, even though his soul power had reached the level of soul emperor, controlling and manipulating his weight wasn't his forte. Hui Yuhao asked, will people from the soul tool department be allowed to use their soul tools during the Sea God's fate? Bei Bei nodded and said, naturally, so neither you nor Hikaitu should worry too much. Even if you have to make one now, I'm sure it won't be difficult to create something to aid the 2 of you in floating atop the water. Hikaitu's expression lightened somewhat as he nodded his head. Bei Bei then spoke in a serious tone, there's one thing that you have to be careful about, Kaitu. No matter what sort of shape the soul tool you create ends up having, you have to make sure that it's agile and nimble. This will be vital. All male and female students will be provided with a leaf from a water lily as tools to float on during the Sea God's fated blind date. Everything else will be up to them. Anybody that falls into the water during any segment will be immediately forfeit and will no longer be allowed to participate in the activity. Hikaitu asked, eldest senior brother, can we attack each other? Bei Bei answered, in some segments. You'll understand if you just keep listening. Of the 56 students from the inner courtyard participating in Sea God's Fate, 39 are male, while 17 are female. The first segment is called Mutual Feelings. While the name sounds nice, it's actually quite difficult. The 17 female students will be standing in a row 100 meters away from the guys, and will all be wearing bamboo hats with veils covering their faces so that you're not able to see their appearances. Simply put, this round requires teamwork from the male students. All 39 of you will be able to attempt to use your own respective powers to launch attacks at the girls. You can attack one, you can attack multiple. The goal is simply to lift the veils covering their faces. How can you choose a girlfriend if you can't even see what they look like? This round is also meant as a way for everyone to display their skills and abilities. There's no doubt that the more bamboo hats a guy can remove, the stronger he is. The girls aren't allowed to help each other during this segment, nor can they retaliate against the guys. They can only passively defend and do their best to stop the bamboo hat from being removed from their heads. If a girl drops into the water during this round, she will also be forfeit. However, the guys generally know what they should and shouldn't do during the first round. If all the girls fell into the water, who would there be to matchmake with? Bei Bei nodded and said, yes, you're right. The difference in martial souls and how advantageous and disadvantageous they are in this segment will be obvious. All 39 of you will draw lots to decide the order in which you'll attack, and are allowed to give up the first round when your turn has come. In the end, not all martial souls are able to attack through the air, and not all martial souls can launch an attack and manage to return to their original spot safely. However, male students that choose to give up will be pushed to the back in the second round. The more bamboo hats that you can lift in the first round, the earlier that you'll start in the second round. Following this, the earlier that you start the second round, the more girls that there will be, and the more choices you'll have. Let me explain the second round. Bei Bei continued to explain the Sea God's fated blind dates rules and the various details to the 3 of them. As he was one of the hosts, he was extremely clear regarding the entire event and its itinerary. This explanation took up their entire afternoon. The sun dipped over the western horizon when Bei Bei finally stood up and said, "The three of you should grab something to eat. I'll go and find eldest senior sister to confirm the itinerary. Remember, don't be late. Everyone already knows where to go. Good luck, everyone. Especially Kaitu and little junior brother." Shu Sancha retorted unhappily, "Why aren't you wishing me good luck?" Bei Bei said, "Does it matter if I do? Is this the first time that you've participated in Sea God's fate? Don't get your hopes up. It doesn't matter because you're shameless anyway. If you can continue with your incessant entangling, maybe one day, Nan Nan will be so upset with your entanglement that she accepts you." Shu Sancha jumped up angrily and said, "What? Don't get my hopes up. I'll definitely succeed this time." Bei Bei didn't even look at him as he waved towards Kaitu and Hui Yu Hao. "I'm leaving. What kind of attitude is this?" Shu Sancha was angry, but he didn't pursue the matter. It was only when Bei Bei disappeared that he muttered to himself, "On account of Tang Ya, I won't hold it against you. When she returns, I will deal with you. Let's eat. I'm going to turn my anger into appetite." Kaitu chortled, "Be careful of gaining weight. You'll be unable to stand properly on the water lily." Shu Sancha snapped, "Gain weight? Worry about yourself first. Don't forget that I have experience. In addition, my martial soul is a water type." He. Kaitu stood up and walked beside Shu Sancha, grabbing hold of his shoulders. He said softly, "Brother, you're more experienced than me even though you've lost every fight that you've been in. Teach me a few tricks, please." Shu Sancha turned gloomy. "What do you mean, I lose every fight? I have reasons for that. If not for what happened, I would have won Nanan's heart over." Hui Yu Hao turned over and chortled, "Third senior, what happened then? We're very curious as to how you offended fourth senior." "I won't tell you." Shu Sancha was very determined not to say. "Nan Nan told me not to ever see her again if I dare to divulge what happened. Don't get me in trouble, let's go and eat." The three of them ate their meal together in the canteen. To Kaitu and Hui Yu Hao, this sea god's fate was very new and interesting. However, they weren't really nervous. After all, they were experienced. After their experiences in the elite Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament, their ability to deal with psychological pressure had grown tremendously. In addition, they also had the training from the Ultimate Soldier Plan. Although they weren't completely immune, they wouldn't become anxious easily. The sky slowly turned dark. Perhaps it was because of the sea god's fate, but Sea God's Island revealed an enchanting aura. On the island, Shrek Academy's inner courtyard students wore their red uniforms as they started to gather in the place where the sea god's fate was going to commence. As the Soul Tool department had only developed recently, the inner courtyard students were mainly from the Martial Soul department. They demonstrated their abilities and quickly gathered by the lakeside. They were all male students, there weren't any women there at all. As the pitch-black mist above the lake spread, it was difficult to see anything clearly. At this point, a huge boat came toward the island from the distance. The boat was all lit up, and the inner courtyard students could see that it was the largest ferry on Sea God's Lake. Right now, it was filled with people. Hui Yu Hao had great eyesight, and could see who was the ferry carried clearly. He saw 6 or 7 elders from the Sea God's Pavilion. Yan Xiaoxia, Cai Maya, Xian Lina, Qian Duo, Fan Yu, and other few people who he wasn't familiar with, but seemed like teachers he had once known, were also there. Those who had previously participated in the Sea God's fate knew what was going on. Those who were experiencing this for the first time were filled with expectation. Their daily lives, learning, and cultivation in the academy were very dry and boring. Holding such an activity meant that the young men were being given an opportunity to show off, and potentially earn themselves a date. The ferry stopped in the middle of the lake. At this point, a ray of light shot out from the lake, which then separated into 17 individual rays. Wow, the male students were all in awe. The 17 rays of light were dim gold, and on top each of them was a young lady in a white dress. All 17 white dresses were the same. They also wore the same bamboo hats on their heads, and their faces were covered by identical white veils. They looked like fairies under the illumination of the golden light. Their appearance was dazzling. They were all quietly lined up in a row, facing the shore. The male students were all very eager by now. At this point, two stronger rays of light also appeared, and two figures surfaced. On the left was Bei, who was wearing a long white robe. On the right was the Shrek Academy Inner Courtyard's eldest senior sister, Zhong Leshuan, who was decked out in a light yellow dress. After not seeing her for 2 years, Hui Yuhao discovered that she hadn't changed at all. Time hadn't seemed to leave a mark on her body. She was still as sweet and beautiful as before, with a light smile on her face. Bei's voice resonated. Sea God's fate above Sea God's lake. One day to pick your love. Welcome all to the lakeside of Sea God's lake on this beautiful night. The annual Sea God's fate will be starting soon. As the MC of today's prestigious event, I'd like to wish all Inner Courtyard students good luck in finding your partner on behalf of myself and eldest senior sister. At the same time, I'd like to welcome the elders from the Sea Gods Pavilion and the teachers who are observing today's event. On behalf of the students, I'd like to sincerely thank all of you. Without your patience in nurturing and helping us, we wouldn't